Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye is covering the 2014 elections on the campus of North Central Technical College in Wausau. We're interviewing State Representative Mandy Wright of Wausau. She's a Democrat seeking re-election in the 85th District. Mandy, welcome back to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you for having me.
A programming note, Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. I know exactly where to start this interview with you, the issue of school funding. You were on the Speaker's Task Force on Rural Schools. You have been holding meetings with Republican Senator Dale Schultz, retiring. Update me. What is now realistic in terms of the next funding cycle for public schools, Mandy, as a former public school teacher?
Well, we are strongly advocating, well, I personally am strongly advocating for fair funding for our future. The plan that Tony Evers put forward, I know there will be some tweaks in the new budget, and certainly it depends heavily on who our governor is, just how far we go in implementing that plan. But it's clear that we need a fix for our funding formula for public schools. And it's also clear that there is a very large and imminent danger with this statewide expansion of vouchers and the funding that's attached to that.
Okay, let's start with vouchers, and I want to circle back to the fair funding plan. The Speaker would like to remove the 1,000 slot limit on outstate voucher slots. You oppose that?
Yeah, the price tag put on that is approximately $1 billion, because after all, it would be removing, everything we've heard is removing all caps from vouchers. That means that all students that already attend private schools and pay for it themselves would be publicly funded, and that gets extremely expensive. And then if we add in a modest 10% of public school students that might choose to go to private schools if it were publicly funded, we're already at $1 billion. And we simply don't have the funds to do that and adequately fund our public schools.
When the Speaker creates a task force on rural schools, it creates an expectation that something's going to be done. Nothing was done last session. So does the fair funding formula of Tony Evers, who may be tweaking it as we speak because he's making his speech today, does it address the unique issues of rural schools in Wisconsin, Mandy?
It goes a long way. I don't think that there's any silver bullet that's going to solve public funding education from here on out, but it certainly sets that base so that we can build the add-ons that we need. I think we'll still need extra help for special needs, for high-cost transportation, for technology for sure. But it will ensure adequate funding for each child in every desk, and it does have some extra funding for some of the high needs. There is a hold harmless clause so that no schools will be disadvantaged, and it also holds the line on property taxes, which is a huge issue, especially in rural Wisconsin right now, as we see so many school districts going to referendum just for operating expenses. That means just to keep the same level of operation, nothing new and exciting, just for operating expenses. So because we saw that $1.4 billion cut to public education from the state, the burden is now on the local property taxpayers, and they, rightfully so, are frustrated and divided over this issue in local communities. So what we need to do is make sure that we're fulfilling our constitutional obligation to provide a free and adequate education, free and equitable education for every child ages 4 through 20, which is written in our Constitution, and right now we are not doing that. It's falling to the local property taxpayers who are resentful for needing to continuously pass referendum.
What was the price tag on fair funding in the last budget cycle?
Last budget it was $400 million.
And you'd get that where?
Well, it was a one-time infusion of money. And first of all, we spend $420 million public dollars for private schools. So I would say that there certainly is an opportunity to recoup some of that cash, especially the $30 million tax cut that's going to people who have higher incomes, who are sending their kids to private schools. And, you know, we did have a $911 million surplus. Before that, we had a $100 million surplus. I would say if there was the political will, there definitely is a way to adequately fund our public schools. But instead, we see it being siphoned off for political paybacks.
No, final question on this issue. As a former public school teacher, Governor Walker's call over the summer to withdraw from Common Core, your reaction?
I think that clearly is pandering to the Republican Governors Association and other Republican special interests, other not even Republican, but extremely conservative special interest groups. When you tour the state, if you talk to parents, teachers, and school administrators, people who are really engaged with the Common Core and understand what it means, overwhelmingly it is supportive, and so it's clear to me that the governor is not listening to the but to outside interests, and I would say that there's probably some money attached to that.
Let's move on to other issues. It'll be a big part of the next state budget. Transportation funding, you've heard the estimates, projected shortfall in the next 2-year cycle of $600 million, $700 million. Your thoughts on how to fill that?
Well, we already had a blue ribbon task force address this, so there are plenty of good options on the table. I am ready and willing to make those tough decisions, but what we really need is some leadership on this issue. I, as an assembly member in the minority, am not going to be able to address this on my own, and I'm honestly rather frustrated with the people who are chair of transportation, the governor, people who are in positions of real power to make these decisions for not taking the leadership and making the tough decisions that need to be made, because I will be happy to work with them and happy to make sure that we resolve this issue for our businesses, for our citizens. It's very important. I
think you just said you'd be willing to consider raising the gas tax and/or the $75 license plate fee?
I think all those things are legitimate things to put on the table. Again, I don't think there's one silver bullet. Everyone I hear, everyone I've discussed this issue with says that we need to consider many issues, or many solutions to this problem. So I agree. I'm just frustrated that there's not the leadership there to make it happen.
Healthcare funding. As you know, 1 in 5 Wisconsin residents get their health care from our Medicaid program. The American Hospital Association says our MA reimbursement rate second lowest in the nation. Time to raise those?
Absolutely. And the first thing that we should do, of course, is accept the federal funding for Medicaid. That was $2.4 billion that the state waved away, even though that's our tax dollars that we could be reimbursed from the federal government. And that alone would make a huge difference in being able to reimburse our providers at a better rate. On top of that, I do think that there are additional tweaks that need to be made, and we absolutely need to make sure that we are adequately reimbursing our providers for meeting the healthcare needs of our citizens, because there already is a gap where people are not able to find affordable care. And as we see that gap widen because our providers are getting less and less funding, we're going to see more and more people not getting the services that they need. So just for overall stability of the system, to make sure that our providers are adequately reimbursed, but also constituents have the opportunity to get the health care they need, we need more funding for Medicaid.
The bill to legalize medical marijuana is going to be coming back, and now the states of Washington and Colorado have legalized recreational marijuana. Your positions on those two?
I support medical marijuana. I don't support recreational marijuana at this point.
Is saffron mining an issue in your district, or no, because it's urban?
It's, we don't have saffron or frac sand mining here. No.
You don't? Okay. It's an old issue, but it always comes back up. First offense, drunken driving. Should it be a crime?
You know, this is a really tough one, because right here in Marathon County, our prisons are already overpopulated. It's extremely expensive to lock someone up. I'd be much more interested in exploring TAD and TIP alternatives, treatments, and diversions or treatment instead of prison, because I think that these are generally good people. We want to rehabilitate them so that they can be good taxpayers and good parents. Putting them in prison is really expensive. We need stronger enforcement. I agree. I do think also that drunk driving is a serious problem in the state of Wisconsin, and it's a part of our culture, unfortunately. but I don't see that putting people in jail on a first offense is the right answer for our community.
Governor Walker said if he's reelected, he's going to call for drug testing of those who are on receiving food stamps and unemployment benefits. Your position?
I strongly disagree with that, especially unemployment. I mean, these are people who had a job and for no fault of their own have lost it. That doesn't mean that they are drug users, and that isn't necessarily even public funds. Those are funds that the businesses put forward to support people when they are out of work. As far as food stamps, I find that really actually a very disturbing notion, because people deserve to eat. And whether they're using drugs or not, especially if there are children in the home, we want to make sure that people have access to food, period. He
also wants to cut back on the benefit periods for both those, for public aid programs, from 60 to back to 48 months. Your response?
Say that again, sorry.
He wants to cut back on the period that people can get food stamps and unemployment benefits from 60 to 48 weeks. Excuse me, I didn't ask the question very well.
Well, the other thing I would just say about the drug testing is that this has been done in other states and proven to be more of an expense than what it saves. So if the point is to save public dollars, it's probably not going to end up there anyway. It's just more shame and punishment for people that need support and rehabilitation. As far as decreasing the availability of unemployment and food stamps, I think that also is extremely dangerous. I meet people on doors all the time who have recently become unemployed and can't find a job. And an interesting demographic is people who are in their 50s, worked at Brokaw Paper Mill, worked at WPS, worked at some of our larger employers who have recently cut 200, 300, 400 jobs in the past couple of years, each one. And now it's very hard for them to find employment. They're not necessarily computer literate. They work the same job for 20, 30 years. They have another 5, 10 before they're really ready to retire. Many of them have already spent down their retirement. There's almost nowhere for them to go. If they don't have unemployment or at least access to food stamps, I'm extremely concerned. We need to find ways to support people, not punish them.
Another thing the governor proposed is extending the 2-year tuition freeze from the UW system campuses to tech colleges like this one. Do you support that?
As a short-term fix, I think that is workable, but I think it's extremely short-sighted. We have significantly cut funding to the UW and the technical college system. As a public school teacher, I looked at if I wanted to work at the technical college or the UW system. Obviously, I would have to go on for more education, but I would actually make less working for, especially the UW system, our extension, than I did as a middle school teacher in the public schools, even though I would have to get my PhD. So there's almost no incentive to go on to those higher levels of education. I think that's a real deterrent for getting the best and brightest in our higher education system. Okay. And it's been traditionally such a strong system. We have so many good people who are sticking through these tough times, but if we don't address teacher salary, if we don't address benefits, if we don't address job security, we are going to lose what makes our higher education systems great, and that's the teachers in the classroom.
And then finally, do you want to highlight any differences between you and your opponent on November 4, Representative?
Sure. I'm from Wausau. I've lived here my whole life. My opponent has not. I have worked very hard the past couple years to make sure that I'm working with everyone in the community, no matter their background, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, and really find solutions and bring people together. Unfortunately, the few public things that my opponent has done have been very divisive. He actually sued our public library and put federal restraining orders on all the board of directors of our Marathon County Public Library because they didn't show a movie that he thought should be shown. So that's a pretty divisive action. And I'd like to say that I'm really here to find the best solutions, work together with everyone.
Thank you. State Representative Mandy Wright of Wausau is a Democrat seeking re-election in the 85th Assembly District. Mandy, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.